So I had this idea, and it has been like kind of circling around my head for the past few years now. But this all started a few years back when I made myself like a really warm and cozy house coat. And I love wearing that house coat, don't get me wrong. But it's not the most comfortable thing to wear in the summer, especially when you're in like a hot and humid climate. So I have the idea of making a really comfortable house coat that you can just throw on, as well as something really light and airy, and combining that together to make what I'm calling the dressing gown. Obviously I'm taking a lot of inspiration from vintage dressing gowns. I'm thinking very early 19th century, but a little bit more whimsical and a little bit more girly, and we're going to make it out of linen. So the plan. I have this image that I found on Pinterest of this beautiful dress, and it looks like someone is wearing it over top of something, kind of like a cover-up, which is pretty much what I want to wear it as. So this is the McCalls M7974. This is a dress with a V-neck top as well as buttons that go all the way down. I'm going to hack this pattern just a little bit to make it more like the picture that I'm referencing. I used this pattern last fall to make a dress, and I also hacked it then to make a square neck version, which turned out really cute. You might want to go check that video out. But overall, this is what we're going to use to make the base. For the fabric, I have this beautiful linen. This is from Blackbird Fabrics. This is the Jumbo Gingham Soft Wash Linen in the color Morning Mist, and I have 2 meters of this fabric. I've used this before. It is just such a nice and breezy fabric, so it will be honestly perfect for this garment. But now that we have the idea, we have the pattern, we have the fabric, it is now time that we actually cut into the fabric. So first I have to pick out all the pattern pieces that I need for this pattern. Because I washed this fabric, it does crinkle a little bit, and I did not iron it, which probably would have been a nice idea. I just need to make sure that the pieces that I have to cut double, I'm actually cutting into double and not missing any fabric underneath. Alright, we've come to a slight dilemma. I'm running out of fabric. I've already cut out the bodice, so that is all figured out. But now when it comes to the skirt, I want to have a really full skirt, but I don't have enough fabric to have a full skirt with a ruffle on the bottom. I'm almost not sure I have enough fabric to do just a long skirt without a ruffle, so we're gonna have to do some Frankensteining. Now, I really should have bought more fabric for this. I bought 2 meters of fabric, and I really should have gone maybe like 2.5 meters. Safe would be like 3 meters. I didn't. So we're going to keep that in mind for next time I order fabric for a project where I intend to use a lot of fabric. Sometimes I'll just buy fabric that I know I like, especially if it's on sale, so that I can keep it for a future project of which I don't really know the outcome of. But this one was specific. I knew I wanted to have this fabric for this house coat, and I did not get enough. So we have a few options. On camera it doesn't look too bad, so I guess this will be our top running. I do have this striped, and that one's not too bad either. Before I make any drastic cuts, I'm going to sketch it onto my iPad and see how it looks before I make the final decisions on what to do with the bottom half of this dress. Tell me why this was the other sketch that I had, where it's showing very, very high contrast ruffle bottom as well as ties. Okay, so my decision is made. That's just the way it has to go. I really like the look of that. So game plan, we're going to make the dress as long as I can out of this fabric. Then we'll add in this color for the front closures as well as the bottom ruffle, and then we should be good. Now that I don't have to save any fabric for a ruffle out of this fabric, I'm really going to try and push how much I can use. Everything's done, let's get into sewing.
I've added interfacing to the front facing as well as the midriff front, and now we can move on to step 2. We're going to gather the upper and lower edges of the bodice front between the small circles. I just want to show you my setup here of all of my instructions. I just have it taped to my puzzle that I had made a few years ago, but it's really nice to have this in front of me. We have just done our gathering stitches here. Now we pin one back yoke section to the upper edges of the bodice fronts and press seams towards the yoke. So I'm going to match up the notches here. Next I'm going to take the back piece and gather up the center between the notches just to give it a little bit of body before we attach it onto the yoke. Next is adding a stay stitch into the curve of the back neck. We're going to attach these front facings to the back yoke, and we're just going to make sure. So I'm just going to lay it out as if it was front facing so that I know everything is going to be correct. So that way I will go like this. I just forgot that I wanted to do a serged edge on this because it is going to be facing the body. So we're going to do that right now. Now that I've serged the seam allowance, I'm just going to iron this edge up towards the back yoke. On this back yoke piece, I'm also just going to iron up the seam allowance. Now I'm just going to pin the facing to the bodice, and we're going to attach the lining. As an extra step, I'm just going to understitch the seam allowance towards the facing so that when I turn it under and press it, it will have a really nice finish. I'm going to take the mid-front piece and pin it to the under bodice, matching up the centers. I'm going to pin the midriff front pieces to the under bust, matching up the notches, and then gathering in the fabric underneath the bust, and then stitching everything together. So now that these front midriff pieces are attached, I'm going to flip them to the other side. I'm just going to move over the front so that I can sandwich this new piece onto it, and then sew them together. Now I'm just going to baste across these edges. So we're going to test out a trick. On one end of my ironing board, I'm going to fold in to where the two edges meet so it can slide through. On the other end of my ironing board, I'm going to do the exact same thing and pull it tight. And pin it in place like this. So now I have this open section that I can pin this place, and if you want to, you can hold on to one end. Then you just have to fold it in half and you have a strip. Just roughly, I'm going to pinch at the very side, follow up to where it's going to be. Then I'm going to make a loop. Going to make a round, and that will roughly be the length that I need to make a bow, and then just a little tail at the end. I do that for the underbust as well as against the waist. So now we're moving on to the sleeve. What I think I want to do first is serge along these edges just to clean up the seam, and we're going to attach elastic to this bottom hem, but the first thing that we need to do is serge the edges and then attach the sleeve to the bodice. I'm also going to add in the gathering stitches between these 2 points on both sleeves. So apparently I was supposed to stitch up the sides of the bodice before I attached the sleeve, but it'll work itself out in the end. All together, I'm going to stitch up the sleeve as well as the side of the bodice all at one go. So the bodice is pretty much put together. I was going to do elastic around the sleeve cuff. I feel like there's not enough material for it to be like a really nice like cinched in cuff without me like pulling it super tight and feeling uncomfortable. I think I'm just going to do a double turned hem on the sleeve and call it a day. The majority of the bodice is done now. The only thing that I've been holding off on is slip stitching the facings down. So this is just something that I like to do after, once I can like sit down and relax. One thing that I need to make sure is that I'm going to stitch them about an inch away from the edge, just so that it has a closer fit for when I tie it together. For the skirt fronts, I'm going to finish off that edge using a double turned hem. Once that's done, we're going to then take our back skirt piece as well as the side skirt pieces and attach them together. Next, I'm going to serge around the curved edge as well as the straight edge of the pocket piece. Now I'm going to attach the pockets. You attach them to the side front panels as well as the front panels. We're going to attach by sewing a straight stitch across. I just like top stitching the seam allowance towards the pocket, just so that the inside of the pocket doesn't peek out. I'm going to stitch around the pocket, then I'm going to stitch down the sides of the skirt, leaving the pocket opening. So now that the skirt is put together and the pockets are fully intact, next thing you're going to do is, keeping the pockets separate, you're going to do 2 lines of gathering stitches across the front, across all of the back panel, and then again making sure that you're not going to get the other side of the pocket, and do 2 more lines across the other side. And then we're going to gather everything in so that we can then attach it to the bodice. I have my pocket ready and I'm going to lay it flat towards the center of the skirt, and then I'm going to stitch across everything. So now we're on to the final touches, which is adding the bottom ruffle. But before we do that, like I said before, I like to get to a point where I can sit down and do a bunch of hand sewing. So I'm going to take the rest of the night and I'm going to hand stitch on the straps for the front, as well as all of the facing across the back. First things first, today I need to connect these 2 pieces into one long big strip, so then we can gather it all down 2 lines of straight stitch, pull it all together, and then attach it onto the bottom of the skirt. This is going to take me a long time, and my hands are probably going to resent me after this, but the heart wants what the heart wants, and I just need a full ruffled skirt. So there's a better way to gather, and I always forget to do this, so we're gonna try that again with the easier and more durable technique, because my stitches keep snapping every time I pull. So try this again. So I don't want to give too much away right now because I'm almost done, but I am considering taking off the ruffle. I don't really like it. As much as like I want it to be like really dramatic, and like I think it would really look a lot nicer with like a matching fabric ruffle all across the bottom. It's just not the same with this new fabric. I think it's too heavy. I think that it really cuts it off and makes it, I don't know, I'm not feeling it right now. I'm going to keep the ruffle if I decide I want to add it back after. Right now I'm caught between the place of wanting to finish it and wanting to finish it with the idea that I originally had, and just it's not working out that way. So I think I'm just going to go with my gut and go with what my friends and family are telling me, which is go without. So we're going to do a very simple hem on this. Because I don't want to cut off any more length of the rope, I'm just going to do a serged edge and then flip it over with a straight stitch.
and then that should be okay.
We are almost done. It's looking really good, but there is something about these sleeves that is skewing it more towards like a 1950s housewife, and that just doesn't fit with my style, so let's just go ahead and change that. Ta-da! Much better. I added in some gored panels into the sleeve so they're just a little bit poofier. Added in the elastic and then top stitched over it so that it really bubbles over.
It just makes me so happy just having this on my body. So, like, the fabric is perfect, the design is just so me, and it's just so nice to just throw on over top of things. I actually wore it to go outside today. I threw it on top of a tank top and jeans. It was just something nice to throw on top of an outfit. I do intend on wearing this more throughout the summer, just like when I'm lounging around the house or doing housework or doing whatever. It just makes me feel a little bit fancier and not as naked, I'll say, when I'm wearing biker shorts and tank tops. The sleeves are actually really nice too. I added in a gored panel, which is just like a triangle piece, into the sleeves. I just slashed them up the side and added in this piece, and now I can lift my arm all the way up to the ceiling. Because before, my other sleeve, I think it only allowed me to lift my arm like probably about this high, but now I can lift my arm all the way up to the ceiling and be totally fine. I also added in this loop at the back so that I can hang it up on a hook. I attached it in 3 places so that it's really sturdy and doesn't want to tear a hole into the outside garment. I do wish I had like that tiny little bit of extra fabric to add in the ruffle, but I really can't complain with how it turned out because I'm really happy. I hope you enjoyed this video. I had a lot of fun making this project. I have so many more projects to share with you. I am trying my best. Algorithm, please forgive me, but this summer is a very busy time for me, especially when it comes to kids being out of school. I don't know what's best, to do longer videos each week or to do shorter videos a few times a week. I feel like I get the most traction with the shorter videos, but I have the most fun making the longer videos. And also my phone hates me a lot less because I keep running out of storage. If you like to stick around to see more projects that I make sure to hit the subscribe button and leave a comment, leave a like. I appreciate them so much. And until next time, thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.